Yeah, he didn't want it to be so long. The one thing that's really challenging is so much difference between obviously we're going to leave free time to help people test stuff and make sure it works. I think just being able to be there to double check could make
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it is 12:31, so we will go ahead and get started. This is the IETF new participant overview. It's meant to be sort of a quick survey of all of the things that might help you be useful this week. I am Karen O'Donohue. I'm a longtime participant in the IETF. I've been a working group chair. I'm also one of the leads of the EODIR project here in the IETF. Also joining me today is Rich Zalls, also a longtime participant in the IETF, expert in security area, and Michelle from the Secretariat, who you all will have received emails from, no doubt. Hopefully you read all of those emails, clicked on all of the links. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started, but this is the information for that. So this first section is just a really quick welcome and admin, and then that's the rest of the agenda for as we go. So sort of to set the expectations, this is not the whole history of the IETF. This is not, detailed instructions on how to get your personal draft through the IETF. It's basically, how do I get started in the IETF? What are some overview of resources and leadership and all of that? And as we go through it, if you have any questions, just think of them, and hopefully we'll leave a little bit of time at the end for you to answer them. The other thing is, and we're doing an experimental session after this to give you all a little bit more experience with Meet Echo and Data Tracker. But I just noticed somebody taking a picture of the slides. The slides are available online. So if you go to the agenda, the online agenda for this meeting, you'll find a tab, a little thing that says materials, and the slides are available there. Feel free to take whatever pictures you want. I just might point out that the slides are available. So this is the first thing. When the IETF has a set of rules and processes that we follow. You will have agreed to these processes when you registered. And any meeting that you attend for the IETF, you are agreeing to abide by this set of rules and processes. Associated with this note well, there's also a long list of best current practices, BCPs, and these are BCPs associated with procedures and policies and those kinds of things. The next thing is we do track attendance at IETF meetings. If you've read any of the documents on the previous lore of the IETF, we used to have physical blue sheets, and we'd pass the blue sheets around and everybody signs the blue sheet. We don't do that anymore. We do all of it online. And every session that you walk into, there's going to be a QR code. There's one outside the door. There'll be one up on the screen. This is how we track attendance, and it's really important for you to sign in. You can do that either with your phone, or you can do it with the full client if you happen to have your laptop open. So the first test for today's meeting is everybody who has not done so, if you can point your phone and click on the QR code, then you will get registered for this session. And if you have any questions or not, we will be talking more about Meet Echo and these tools later in the meeting. So um, I'm going to move on, but feel free to use the QR code at any point so that you can participate. So the next thing, because we will also want you to be asking questions, is we have a queue. And so you can join the queue either with your phone or with your laptop if your laptop is open. It's really important that everybody join the queue before asking a question because we have remote participants as well as on-site participants. And that way the remote participants get equal access. So add yourself to the queue, and you can see the little hand. If you click on that, that's basically raising your hand. And then there'll be an online queue, and whoever is running the session will admit you, will ask you to speak. Also, when you come to the microphone, again, we do have remote participants. Please speak very clearly and say your name and your affiliation if you have one. And that's all I'm going to do about Meet Echo now, but if you want to learn more, we will have the test session and you can look at that. The next thing is just sort of general meeting administrivia is, we have lanyards and buttons and pins and all of these things, and you might wonder what all the differentiation is. The first thing is lanyards. We have two colors of lanyards here. We have white lanyards and red lanyards. If you would prefer not to be individually photographed, then you can choose a red lanyard. If you don't mind, if you're in any of the photographs, take a white lanyard. I will say that the red lanyards, it's please avoid taking my pictures, but if you're in a room full of people, if they're taking pictures at the plenary and they're taking pictures of the whole group, then you will appear in those. It's not a guarantee that you won't be in any pictures, but it is a way to respect your request not to be photographed. The next thing is pins, and this is a holdover from COVID. We started it when we had our very first in-person meetings after COVID, and it has continued because it is a good way to sort of signal to people exactly how comfortable you are. So if you are, meeting friends and family and you're comfortable with hugs, and that's a green. If you are yellow, you're cautious, maybe elbow bumps or that kind of thing. Or if red, if you would rather not have any physical contact, wear red. And the final thing is buttons. There's a ton of buttons there, but some of the ones that we want to point out in particular are the language buttons. We have a lot of people here from all over the world. If you speak another language, you can wear a button, and that way somebody who also speaks that language can speak with you that way. So feel free to avail yourselves of the lanyards, pins, and buttons. They're in by the registration desk. So with that, that's the administrative part. So now we're going to move on to, I'm going to cover the overview of the IETF. So basically the mission of the IETF is to make the internet work better. And we make it work better by having high quality standards that are that people implement and design and deploy. And the basic ethos of the IETF is that anybody can participate. There is all of the work is available for free. All of the work is transparent and in public. And that contributions are judged on technical merit and not necessarily, money or that kind of thing. And the success, we publish a lot of documents. So what makes something successful? And something that's successful is voluntary deployment. So that's the basic ethos of the IETF. It is, at its heart, a standards development organization. Some of you may have participated in others, like ITU or IEEE or any number of consortium types of standards groups. In this case, we have no formal voting or no formal membership. Obviously, companies do support individuals to come here, but it's a self-selected individual participant. And it's driven by market adoption. We don't have the authority to require, procurement standards, for example, to include specific standards that we develop. That's outside the remit. It is bottoms up and somewhat unique. I've already covered that we have no formal voting, no formal government role, although governments are welcome to participate, and we have a number of governments that have participated here over the years. And it's not a sales conference or a trade show like you might have been to in other things. The funding model for the IETF, it relies on support to ensure that its work remains open and accessible. It comes from the registration fees that everybody has paid, from donations, from corporate contributions, general and targeted sponsorships, including diversity and inclusion. And it also is supported and funded by the Internet Society. So the Internet Society provides some additional, provides a significant portion of the IETF budget at this point. So now, on to the real pieces here. So this is the big picture. The IETF, you have the working group, the IETF, which is the engineering task force. You have the IESG, which is the engineering portion, and the pink portion is the research portion. So you have engineering in blue, and you have research in pink. And so the IESG is the body that manages all of the technical working groups. And the IRSJ is the body that manages all of the research groups. In addition to that, you have the Internet Architecture Board, which looks at general architecture issues for the IETF and also maintains all of the external liaisons for the IETF. So the external relationships are maintained through the IAB. And then you have the administrative LLC, which is the black box at the top. They handle all of the contracts, the venue selection, the contracts for the support groups that support the work of the IETF. The IETF work, or the working groups, are divided into a number of areas. There is a change in this from previous versions. This is not a static list of areas. Over time, it changes depending on what the needs of the IETF are. The new area that we have this time, or the changes in the areas that we have, are the applications in real time, and then the web and internet transport. So there's been a shuffling of previous areas to rebalance, and those are the two areas that were impacted by that. And then obviously we have routing and internet operations and management, security, and general area. The general area is things that where the IETF works on processes. So when we redesigned how the RFC editor role was done, it was done in a general area working group. So often you'll hear about IETF and consensus. The primary job of a working group chair, beyond managing the work of the working group, is to judge the consensus of the working group. So IETF works on a rough consensus model where you have addressed all of the concerns that have been brought forward. They may not have been accommodated. The group may have decided to go one way or another, but everything has been addressed, and the working group chairs at that level have determined that there is consensus on the issue. You can do consensus at a document level, or you can also do consensus calls on individual topics. So if you have, you're struggling in developing a standard, and there's 2 or 3 ways to do it, and you really need to make a decision here, you can do a consensus call on that specific topic. But there is no voting. Often you will hear, in IETF folklore types of articles, you hear humming. And so the IETF does on occasion hum as a way to measure the general feeling of the room, but again, without voting. That has been a little bit more challenging to implement in Meet Echo because there's not really a good way to hum, but so you do. There is a show of hands tool, which looks suspiciously like voting. So, so the primary work of the IETF is done in working groups. And you don't have to join a working group. You can just start following it and then contribute to the mailing list. So a little bit later, if I were to say the one single thing that is the most important for the IETF in following the work is to figure out the data tracker, because everything that the IETF does that has all of its documents, all of its meeting minutes, in all of the different working groups, the leadership, where you are with a particular document, all of that can be found in the data tracker. So if you start at the data tracker, and this is an example of the DNS Ops one, you can see that the tabs across the top where it says About, Documents, Meeting, History, Photos, et cetera, et cetera. So that's basically the landing page. The About page is the landing page for this working group. And from here you can see, Who are the chairs? Who's the area director? What's the address of the mailing list? You can also look back on previous meetings. If you go to the Documents tab, you can see all of the published documents, all of the documents that are in draft state. And if you have any questions or whatever, you can reach out to the chair. So this is where you start with any working group. So then a most common question that people ask as a new participant is, how does new work get started in the IETF? And we have a presentation on this. The more each time I do this, I think we really need to revise that presentation. But we have basically it's contribution driven. So if there's something that you want to see discussed in the IETF, then you need to write it up. So some set of participants, a participant or some set of participants has identified a problem that needs solving. And then there's a question, does that problem fit into the general scope of the IETF? So it's something that aligns with the kind of work that the IETF does. So then is the scope well defined and understood? So it's not a research topic. The research is basically complete, and we're ready to do the engineering work to actually define it. And then you can get agreement on timetables and milestones and people that are willing to do the work. And if you have that list of things, then, then you can start and proceed with work through the IETF. Down here is the link to the presentation I mentioned on the previous slide, which talks in a lot more detail about the various mechanisms for bringing into it. So the previous slide is a vision of how work happens, but the actual process steps for it, this is the next step. How do you do it? The first thing you really need is to try and find some collaborators with similar interests. One way to do that is the hot RFCs that are done later this evening. That is often people that have a little idea and they want to see if anybody else has similar ideas. Yes.
Question now or later?
Now, but can you go to the microphone?
So you talked about the idea. What do you mean? We come up with a new idea is like a problem and we already have some kind of a proposal for solution. Or we can simply come up with a problem statement which you'd like to propose and discuss in the, both are welcome, or only proposal, some problem statement with some idea proposal to solve. What is welcome here?
I would say that both are welcome.
Okay.
Obviously, a problem with a proposed solution it may get more traction. But I think, here is a problem. Does anybody else think this is a problem? And does anybody have any ideas on how to solve this problem? Is also open. It just might be a little bit more conversation.
Okay.
The more you can narrow, the more you can narrow your scope down so that you can identify what working groups might be interested in the problem, or what set of individuals or companies might be interested in the problem, that always helps. Because the key here is finding a set of collaborators that you can work with that will help you get the kind of traction you need. And if you have it written down, then people like the area directors or the working group chairs can also say, well, I've read this and this is interesting, and I think you should talk to this set of people over there. So you've identified some collaborators. That's great. You might write some initial internet drafts, or you might have some informal meetings. A barb-off is basically an informal meeting. You can do that through the side meeting wiki, which we'll talk about a little bit later, or you can just do that by collecting a group of people together. Maybe you'll talk to the area directors. One of the things as a new participant, historically, a number of areas have had individual dispatch sessions, but this time we're doing an experiment where the Monday morning session is a dispatch for all of the IETF. And so this is another way, as opposed to going through a BOF. So you come to the dispatch group and you say, here's my idea. And then there's a short presentation, here's the idea. And then there's a discussion about not the merits of the idea or any of those kinds of things, but it's, what should we do with this idea? What should we do with this solution? Should we, it's really mature and we agree with it, and there's an area director that's ready to just sponsor it, then it's an AD sponsored document. If it's something that there's already an existing working group for, then you can say, well, this is a really interesting idea, and we think it's within the existing charter of the working group over there. Take it to that working group. Or the third thing would be, this is a problem that we really need a working group for. Let's think about the process for setting up a working group and begin that process. Or we really think this is outside the scope of the IETF. So that's what dispatch is. If you just think of it in bringing something in and then dispatching it to where it needs to go. Yes, sir.
Hi, Manu with Hushmesh. I figured out the hot RFC stuff. Was there a way to apply for a dispatch session, or what's the process for that? Did I miss it? I guess I did.
Well, at this stage, you've probably missed it. There are individual dispatch working groups, and so often you would, like the security area has a security dispatch one, and so you would send an email to the chairs of that and say, this is a document that I would like to be considered in this agenda. For this particular meeting, the email would have gone to whoever's chairing that experiment.
Got it.
So it's a little bit fuzzier this time because of this experiment. But as as we determine whether this experiment is successful or not, then we can update this information to say, you need to send email to this
So,
thing.
so I guess for 120, then there will be emails ahead of time, or I should, send an email to the SEC dispatch, for instance, and then
Right.
got it. Thank you.
Yeah. The prior to this one, basically the dispatch meeting this time is going to be a joint meeting of all of the various dispatch working groups. And so you would find the dispatch working group for the area that you think your work falls into. I think that was it. Yes. So we've figured out the dispatch process, and the final thing is the birds of a feather session, where you and if you are, as a new participant, check the birds of a feather sessions here, because this is new work that people are talking about starting that might be of interest to you. Some of the working groups that have been around for a long time, sometimes you walk into the working group and they're deep in the details of the protocol, and sometimes it can be hard to get a little bit of traction when they're already, if a document is 4 years down the road, they're probably going to be a little bit resistant to a comment that comes in and says, I have this new idea that replaces everything you've done for the last 4 years. That's sometimes not well received. So I think that brings me to Rich. Or, yes, that's you, right?
Hi, my name is Rich Sauls. As said at the intro, I've been coming to the IETF pardon me, for a long time. Been involved in the new participants and the directorate that runs it for a long time. I bought the shirt for Halloween. It's full of all the scary monsters, some of whom you'll see wandering the halls, right? So it's a joke.
Oh, I know what the problem is.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to talk about what the IETF meeting is, what it's like. The IETF, as Karen said, does its work. The unit of work is a working group. It's a collection of people working on the same sets of things. The IETF has, I think it's 127 right now, working groups. They come and go. If you go to the plenary or you see the IESG report, they'll say, oh, since the last group, we shut down 6 groups, we added 4. So it varies a lot. There are birds of a feather session. This is where people who want to begin discussing an idea, and I think there were like 3 of them at this one. One of them was on a new DNS entry type and so on. You have a birds of a feather session. We talk about what the problem is. We maybe sketch out what a working group would do if it was approved. And then hopefully the next time the working group's approved, it would meet. The IRTF is a parallel organization focused on longer term research stuff, like Karen said. There are 15 groups. Not all of them are meeting, same as not all the working groups are meeting. I forget how many we have. You can look at the agenda and count all the individual ones, but it's, it's a full week starting. The official working group sessions start tomorrow and run through Friday. There are area-wide sessions. So for example, the entire security area has a SAG meeting, security area group. I forget what it's the middle A is, although I'm involved with it. We have invited talks, so later on this afternoon, there's someone will be giving a deep dive on what you need to know about the border gateway protocol if you want to design an application protocol. So it's a little sort of routing and what you need to know about routing. Often the host of the person who pays for the main social event, which we're not having this year, we don't have a host, they get a chance to have a speaker come. The plenary, Greek word, I think Greek, meaning all attend. There's nothing scheduled opposite that. That's usually Wednesday evening. A lot of administration. So all those little boxes that Karen talked about, the staff, the LLC, the trust and all will present, here's how much money we lost last year, that kind of thing. Social event, the hackathon was yesterday and today. I know Michelle had sent out early, one of our first mails was talking about the hackathon so people could sign up ahead of time this time if they didn't know about it before. This evening, there's a hot RFC. The IETF likes to reuse some of its favorite acronyms. RFC in this case means request for conversation. So you have 4 minutes to talk about an idea, and the purpose of this is to encourage people who are interested in that same kind of thing to come meet with you and talk, and then maybe you'll have a BOF, maybe you'll have a working group, maybe you'll just have some mailing discussion and so on. There's open time, there's side meetings, there's a wiki related to the IETF meeting where people can register in some of the rooms, pardon me, that are set aside for that kind of thing. So there's a lot going on. Click next. Okay, working group session. This is the biggest thing, the biggest part of the week. It's sort of the how you justify to your boss that you should send me kind of drill, right? A lot of the work is done on email. The IETF functions pretty much as an email list, although a lot of groups do use GitHub for their documents, and so there are issues and pull requests and so on. But the formal record of IETF stuff is done on email. The face-to-face meetings, and again, only a subset of them are meeting because we have limited slots available. The face-to-face meetings are where we say people working, editing the documents will say, and since the last meeting, here are the things I've changed. Here are the things we've changed. And they'll go through and here's the open issues that are new. So if you haven't read the document beforehand, and then they come and say, well, here's the things that we've added, and you don't have all of the background, you're going to kind of be lost. But if you want to just, you're not sure if you want to get involved in a group, the charter, the description of it looks kind of interesting. You can just go and sit there and no one's going to kick you out because you don't know anything. If you try to stand up at the mic and say, now, what is TCP? Or some basic question like that, people get a little annoyed and they'll go, well, we'll talk offline. A lot of decisions are made in the face-to-face meetings, but what people will say, what the chairs and in the normal structure of the meeting, the attendees are all sitting there and the chairs sit up front here to guide the conversation and keep to the agenda. They will say, okay, we strongly agree that we're going to change the meaning of TCP, but we will confirm that on the mailing list, meaning they're going to go back and post a note saying, at the last working group, we agreed TCP meant, I don't know, trusting computer programs. Anybody disagree, speak up now. So the mailing list is the official place where decisions and consensus is made. All of the sessions are recorded using a tool we sponsored called MeetEcho. They were invaluable during the pandemic and before it and after it. They'll all be available, including this session, on the IETF YouTube channel. You can go look at them afterwards. I found myself doing that when you're sort of marking down what meetings you want to go to and you find all of a sudden that, oh, wow, like for the first time ever, there's 4 meetings I want to go to in this one session tomorrow. So I'll pick one and then I'll just watch the recordings at probably 2x speed, later on when I get home so I can still write it up and act as if I was at all 4 meetings. Kind of works that way. The charter, what the working group is going to deliver, what the working group, when it should be delivering it and so on, is developed by the group in association with their area director and then approved by the whole IESG, which is the collection of all of the area directors. Oh, I think it's died again. Birds of a feather are informal meetings. They're scheduled to discuss something that might want to be a working group. So I know DNS delegate, I think there's 2 BOFs coming at this time. Typically it meets once. If they decide they want to go forward, people will work what we call offline or in a small email discussion to figure out what the group should do and then present it to the ISG for approval as a working group. The IRTF also meets. These are research groups focused on longer term things. For example, global access to the internet is one research. What does it mean if we're going to have the entire globe hooked up to the internet? How do we handle that? There's a post-quantum research group. What is it? How do we do quantum key exchange? How do we make things safe when a cryptographically relevant quantum computer, it's a mouthful, becomes available? There's a crypto forum research group which does analyzes a lot of cryptography methods and then presents recommendations to the IETF. There's a human rights research group and so on. They're open to all IETF attendees. They're it's a blurry line. There's a definite distinction between the way the 2 are organized, but everything is available through the data tracker. You'll just notice sometimes it says WG/TLS as opposed to RG/CFRG. So there's working groups and research groups. There is an RFC that every document in the IETF is an RFC that gives an overview of what the IRTF is. The IRTF also gives out prizes for the best networking related papers. And it includes, I think, funding to come here and, small cash prize. And they get to present at the open meeting. Some of the area-wide sessions, so the plenary, it's typically held in whatever the largest ballroom is of the facility. If it's in a hotel, I'm not sure where it's going to be held here. Nothing is scheduled opposite it. So you can see in the lower right corner, the ISG open mic. That's where the various administrative organizations sit up there at the dais and get a chance to take questions from the audience, or the audience gets a chance to ask them questions. Can be worthwhile. It can sometimes be sort of boring and inside baseball if you don't care about organizational stuff. But it's definitely worth looking at, following lightly along and looking at the reports that people generate, the different organizational boards generate. The hackathon. So again, it was yesterday, finishing up today. Free to participate. Lunch and breakfast are provided free to the sponsors. You have to register. So some people here might have a little, down at the bottom of the thing, there's a little badge on it that says hackathon. Nobody's really going to check. A lot of people walk in just to walk around and see, their friends and people they haven't seen in the last 4 months, catch up with colleagues and so on. We get a lot of developers here at times. The attendance is off a little for Australia because it's a long way for most people to travel. But we get a lot of local attendees, local universities come. I know Brisbane's having a worldwide science conference happening now, so it's probably that. And the idea is you can take a draft, we can start to actually code it up, and we can work together and make sure that your implementation of the latest time draft works with my implementation of the latest time draft or the latest new addition to a DNS record type. It's always the weekend before. It's always free. It's easy to sign up. When you register, it will say, one of the check boxes is I'm attending the hackathon. And anyone who wants to attend can propose a project that they want to work on. In a wiki, there's people who can sign up for the various areas. Pardon me. Social events, we're not having one this year because we don't have a host. But there's always a hallway gathering shown there on the left-hand picture. And on the right side, that was from a few years ago, that was held at the Singapore National Aquarium, where we got to eat sushi looking at the octopuses. Not really, but Sisters is an organization within the IETF that is for people who identify as a woman, identify as female. They have lunches, they have gatherings, and so on. Everyone who feels inclined is welcome to attend those as well. I forget, there's a lunch meeting and something else this week? Pardon me?
Lunch Thursday.
Thursday lunch.
And
And then Tuesday morning is a networking event. It's in the agenda. The bottom link on the bottom will point to, the mailing list to join and so on. Okay, so some general advice about etiquette. Read the documents before you start talking about them at the mic. Um, that's avoid your own personal embarrassment. Behave respectfully. This is a series of technical meetings. Talk to people, listen to what people are saying. You can comment and evaluate and criticize or praise ideas, not the people behind it. When you're online, and for those who are, aren't going to be, at the next meeting, if you're going to attend online, test your audio configuration. The Meet Echo tool, like as was mentioned, after this session, we're having an example showing the Meet Echo tool the full client that you would use on your browser. It's a browser-based audio-visual streaming communication tool like Zoom, WebEx, Google Meet, all of those kinds of things. Speak slowly and clearly. It's a lesson I need to learn, but we're trying to get a lot of information in. All right, so now I'll talk a little bit about the resources that are available, particularly for new attendees. So the participants, people here, if you're in the computer field, and I say we have strong opinions about technology, that should not be any surprise to anyone here, right? All of the computer nerds, especially, and all the networking nerds have strong opinions about the technology, right? If you can have an argument about tabs versus spaces, then you know what I'm talking about. If you have a question about what something is, and maybe it's not appropriate to stand in front of the room and stand at the mic and have the whole working group, go up to someone who presented afterward and say, hey, I had a question about one of your slides. You got a minute? And so on. Informal dress code. We give out a t-shirt to everyone when you register. I'm not going to say that so you have to have one less outfit to pack, but there are a lot of people who work that way, right? Oh, I don't have to dress for Friday because I can wear my t-shirt. I don't like, I wear my Halloween shirt 4 times a year. Technical excellence is what's valued here. So when people talk, they say their name, and we didn't say your name and affiliation. So I would say Rich Sauls at Akamai. That's purely to help identify people. You may not remember my name. You may remember, oh yeah, that good-looking guy who worked at Akamai was, whatever. But it's purely for identification. People at the IETF work and participate as individuals. So if you come and say, well, my company really wants to do this, or I work at some large networking company, and here's the way, we should tweak IPv6 to become IPv7, and let's just make all the routers change. That's not going to go over well. But if someone comes up and says, well, I have this way of using UDP to smash together the various transport layers, and we'll call it quick, and it'll be really fast and efficient, that will get a lot of uptake, and people will be interested in that. So as an individual, speak and know you're speaking as an individual. Your company name probably doesn't will not make your arguments listened to more generally. If you do your homework and you speak up and contribute either in person or on the mailing lists, that's how people get to know you. And there's a lot of, oh, I remember you. That's what you look like, you haven't seen people ever. And there's a lot of people, even now I still meet people who I only know through email. The IETF is more than 30 years old. There are some people who've been coming to the 2 or 3 meetings a year for all 30 years. These are people who've known each other for a really, really long time. And they might speak a little more harshly or frankly to each other than we generally expect in the open conversation. Just assume that, they're friends and they're harassing each other. But hopefully this is a segue. No, talk about it later. We do not tolerate harassment. Okay. The dots and badges and ribbons. Karen mentioned it. There's different colors. I'm a new attendee because I'm here, uh, but I'm not. There are labels by the registration desk, uh, preferred pronouns. Yeah, this gentleman here has got the largest collection of labels I've seen in a while. So they're useful, they're funny, people can put jokes. I'm missing the little label. I'm the chair of the HTTP API working group. One of its claims to fame is it has the most syllables of any name, because there's no way to pronounce HTTP as a word. Some of the people involved, the executive director, he is hired by the board, runs the LLC, which is the legal entity that can sign contracts for hotels and meetings, disperse funds to help develop the tools, help spend on Meet Echo and things like that. Jay is one, he'll be speaking at the plenary, giving a brief budget update. The secretariat are the people who actually make things work, right? They wear, as Michelle is the member, they wear those little blue shirts during the day. On Friday, they all turn into tie-dye shirts, because it's the end of the day, everybody's packing up. So if you have a problem, Jay is almost always busy running around. Anybody with one of the secretariat shirts can help you or point you towards, the right person. Wake up. Okay, next, please. The RC editor, these are the people who produce the documents. Working group documents go through several drafts. After it leaves the working group, it goes to the area director, then to the IESG and the whole IETF community for review. That's called the last call process. And then it gets sent over to the RFC Publication Center, RPC, although that acronym has multiple meanings. But the RFC editor, the people who publish the documents. I think at least two of the people will be here. IANA is the assigned numbers authority. So for example, in DNS or TLS, there's different record types, and each of those has a number. And the organization that maintains those registries and numbers is IANA. They also handle OID assignments if you need an OID, and some IP address stuff, and also manage some of the domain names and the infrastructure for, sorry, the secretary does. They handle some other numbers, but if you go to iana.org, you'll be able to see a list of the things they do. Harassment. We don't tolerate harassment. If somebody is giving you a hard time and they're not somebody you know, and they're not just like, if somebody's giving you a hard time, don't take it. You don't have to. We don't tolerate, we have an anti-harassment policy. There are, if you have any questions about it, a good escalation path is you speak to the working group chair of the meeting you were in. Then you could go to the area director who supervises that working group. You could go to the general chair. If it's one of those people, then you probably want to go directly to the ombuds team. Ombudsman team, but ombuds team. Do you know who's here? Pete? Yeah, so Pete Resnick, fourth one in, third one in, depending on which way you go, is the only guy here. We just recently expanded it to have more than just, the typical white guys handling complaints. But Avri and Sophia are new members of the team, and if you mail ombudsteam@ietf.org, they'll be around to help if there's an issue. Again, we're zero tolerance. The NOC, the Network Operations Center. On the back of your badge, it says, here's the IETF network, the IETF, the password is IETF, IETF, and there's a couple of networks. Those people come here the week before, set up the network, all the little access points that are in all of the rooms. Yeah, I don't know where it is in this room. It's probably in the back there. If you have problems reporting, I can't get my network, I'm not getting a good network address. I can't, what's going on? Email to that address, support@ietf.org. It'll open up a ticket. These people are really, really dedicated. And they'll fix the issue as quickly as they can. MeetEcho, I would advise you, if you haven't used the browser-based tool, to stay around for the next session run by Michelle for an echo. Everyone should have scanned the QR code, so they have a little very lightweight client on their phone. You can press the button to join the queue, and that means it'll show up on the upper right-hand corner of this video, and the chairs are responsible for going through the queue and telling, just saying, okay, we're running out of time, we're going to close the queue, and so on. Attendance is very important because it will determine how much space is allocated to the next meeting, right? So this one, newcomers is a little different because we know how many people have said self-identified as newcomers. But if a working group says, oh, well, I got 30 people last time, so I'll have 30 people this time, and all of a sudden 50 people show up, it's going to be really tight and cramped and hot in that room. So it's really important to register for the meetings. The data tracker, this is datatracker.ietf.org, alias dt.ietf.org. Every group has a data tracker page. The TLS there for the TLS working group. If you know the shorthand name like TLS or DNS or IPv6 ops, you can figure out lots of things, what the name of the mailing list is, what its data tracker page is, how to reach the chairs of that working group. There's a whole bunch of aliases and configuration that are derived from that shorthand name. I advise you to pick a working group or click on, when you look at the agenda, there's a column that says what group it is. If you click on that and then go to the About page, you can see how all of those things are defined. And so it's sort of more or less algorithmically generated once you know the name. Mailing lists. The IETF lives and dies on email. There are general discussion lists, IETF@ietf.org. There are meeting-specific mailing lists, so 119-attendees, for example. There are working groups, and when a working group is shut down, the mailing list still stays open. So that people can say, hey, I had this question that the the Tigris group came up with 6 months ago, and maybe somebody on that list will be able to respond. There are non-working group mailing lists. If you go to the data tracker and you click on other, you'll see, I think it's other groups, and then other, there's like dozens of non-working group mailing lists. One was just created on controlling AI. Presumably that means via policy and legal stuff, but I'm not sure. Everything else, there's a link at the bottom. Again, these slides are available through the data tracker. If you click on the meeting materials, you can get a document that has like working links, and you don't have to write them all down. Zulip is a chat server. It's like Slack, better. The data tracker, you log in with your data tracker ID. It's an instance run on the data tracker. It's open source. Every working group has a Zulip chat stream. It's all very web oriented and so on. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle.
It is working.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle Cotton, and I am the face behind all the emails that you have been receiving. Welcome. I have been going to IETF meetings since about 2000. So been doing different roles throughout the years, but I currently am working for the Secretariat. As Rich mentioned, we help organize the meetings and hopefully make everything work so that you all have a great experience. During the week, if you need anything, please come to me. If I don't know the answer, I'm pretty determined to try to get you an answer. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of what's happening during the week as far as sessions and events go. Oh, And there we go. So here at IETF 119, this is the overview tutorial, that first one listed there. And as Karen mentioned earlier, we're going to have kind of an experimental session right after this to explore Meet Echo. That tool is used every session, so it's something you definitely want to be familiar with. We did have 2 sessions last week to review Meet Echo remotely, but if you haven't logged on, tried it, used the buttons, practice getting into the queue, this is a nice safe space where we can make mistakes and you can test your audio and video and all that, and we'll make sure that it's working for you. Tonight, or technically this afternoon, there's a session called Quick Connections. You did need to sign up for that ahead of time just because we've got capacity in the room that it's being held that we can't go over. So you, if you signed up for that, we'll see you later. That's a session where we match up experienced IETFers. It's kind of like speed dating, but for IETF information. It's a room, there's tables. Experienced IETFers are at each of the tables, and then the new participants kind of move around and switch. It gives you an opportunity to talk to working group chairs, area directors, some IAB members. And so if you have very specific questions, like what session should I go to? Or is there somebody here at the IETF that I should be talking to about X? They have such a wide breadth of knowledge that they might be able to think of who to direct you towards or which working group to direct you to. So it's just a great opportunity to meet a lot of people quickly. Monday night, we are having a new participant dinner. It's off-site. It's currently sold out. Again, we just have only so much space. If anything changes as far as capacity for the new participant dinner or Quick Connections, I will email the new participants groups. So you can always keep an eye out for that. And then on Thursday, we have a social hour, and it's pretty much to just chat about your week. Some of the leadership shows up, so you can talk to them. What went well? What did you have a problem with? Can we do anything better? You could talk about the next IETF meeting coming up, or you can just relax and unwind, and you have one more day to go after that on Friday. Everything's on the new participant page. You can always go there and check it out. You can always go back to the mailing list archives, and all the messages that I've sent out for 119 are there. So if you think you might have missed something, just go back and check that list. Additional events happening here this week. So tonight at 5 o'clock, we're going to have the Welcome to Country ceremony. This is not something we do at every IETF. This is very unique to coming to Australia. This is my first time in Australia, so I'm very much looking forward to that. We've got the welcome reception. There'll be food and drinks there. It is a cash bar, just FYI. We've got hot RFC tonight. Richard Karen talked about that earlier. Again, if you just want to see how does it work, what do people talk about, it's a great place to go and just see what people do as far as presenting ideas. We talked about sisters networking. Rich covered the plenary, and then there's a sisters lunch on Thursday. If you have any questions about the sisters group, also I can answer questions afterwards for sure. Still not sure where to start. There is a blog post listed up there where our Director of Communications worked with the IESG on what's happening in different working groups, what's new, good topics for new participants. So if you take a look at that, maybe it'll give you some ideas of which working groups to go to. This is all on the agenda. You can just browse the agenda and see what's going on. On the agenda also, area directors, the different areas, transport, security, all of them. Not every IETF meeting do they offer the office hours, but at least a couple different groups will offer the office hours at an IETF meeting. So if you're really, really interested in security and you just want to go chat with the area directors, really about anything, that's a great opportunity for you to go in and ask some questions. And that's all listed on the agenda. Connecting with other new participants, of course, in person. We will have a sign that's a meetup spot for new participants, and this is helpful, especially if you're here on your own, you don't really know anybody. You can, send a message to the new participant mailing list and say, hey, anybody want to go to lunch or anybody want to go to dinner on any particular night, meet at the new participant meeting spot. And I've seen it in action. Strangers come together. You have new connections and you're talking about technical or government or various different types of things all night long. So I'll be sending a message to the mailing list to let you know where that sign is going to be. As you may have seen, this space is really huge. And so I'm still trying to figure out where a good spot is for that. So I'll send a message to the mailing list. You can chat via Zulip mailing list, and anytime you want, stop by the registration desk. You can chat with us. We're happy to guide you in any way, help any way we can. Rich went over the registration desk. There's a technical help desk. RFC Editor and IANA have desks. You can just go up there and say hello and ask what they do. They'll be happy to explain if you need a little more information. Again, anything you're having problems with, please send a message to support@ietf.org. And above, I know this session, it's condensed. We threw a lot of information at you as far as how the IETF works. It's hard to do that in just an hour with an organization that's been around for so long and has changed, morphed over time. But above, just enjoy yourself, meet people. We really hope you enjoy the experience, and we're here to help you if you have any questions.
Right. So if you have any questions, feel free to get in the queue. I do have two things I wanted to mention. The first one is if you have any feedback on this particular presentation, please be sure to send it to us. I know it's a lot of information. You can send an email to the EODIR mailing list, or you can talk to any of us or do whatever. But we're always looking at ways to improve the presentation, so we'll be happy for that. The second thing I wanted to mention is we are doing something this week that we haven't done in a few years, and that's we're having a couple technical tutorials. So one today at 3 o'clock is basically an introduction to BGP. So it's to the technology in general. And then there'll be a follow-up session on Thursday evening. Unfortunately, it partially collides with the new participant social hour, but it's a deeper dive into BGP if you're looking, what do you need to know about BGP if you are designing protocols? And so I think both of those sessions, if you have any interest in it, should be really good. So I encourage you to add those to your calendar if you have time and inclination. I still don't see anybody in the queue. Feel free to test out the queue, raising hand if you want, or otherwise.
Yeah, we're gonna just turn this room over real quick and we're gonna enter a new MeetEcho room. So if you do wanna test out your MeetEcho and learn some of the fun buttons, stick around. Otherwise, this session's over. So have a great week.
Thank you.